You probably didn't expect it to end like that. I know I didn't. You sit down, ready for a playoff battle, believing this team has another deep run in it, and instead you're watching a 41-6 loss that feels shocking, frustrating, and honestly a little surreal. From the opening drives, it was clear something was off. The offense never found rhythm, the defense was on its heels, and before you could even settle into the game, Seattle was in full control. That's the kind of loss that doesn't just end a season, it forces uncomfortable conversations about what comes next. And that's really why this game matters beyond the score. Blowout playoff losses don't happen in a vacuum. They expose weaknesses, accelerate decisions, and push front offices to act faster than they might have planned. When you lose like this on the biggest stage, you don't just tip your cap and run it back. You start looking at contracts, injuries, depth charts, and asking which players truly fit where this team is going next. That's the reality the 49ers are facing right now. Before we go any further, if you're someone who wants honest, no-fluff 49ers coverage all off-season long, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. We're pushing hard to hit 1,000 subscribers, and every single one of you makes a real difference in keeping this channel growing. And while you're here, hit the like button if this loss still stings a little, because I know it does. Now let me ask you something, and be honest in the comments. Do you think this was just a terrible matchup and a bad night, or did this game expose deeper issues with the roster? Type one-off if you think it was a fluke, or problem if you believe changes are unavoidable. I really want to see where you stand, because this fan base is split right down the middle right now. The hard part is that this loss didn't just end the season, it likely closed the door on certain players returning. Some of those names might surprise you, and at least one of them could completely change how this offense looks moving forward. That's where things get real. Because once emotions cool down, the front office has to decide who stays, who goes, and how to rebuild trust in a roster that just got embarrassed on the playoff stage. In the next part, I'm going to walk you through 5 players who feel very unlikely to be back after this loss, why the signs are pointing that way, and what each potential departure means for the future of this team. Stick with me, because this is where the offseason truly begins. When you step back from the emotion of that loss, this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because there are some names on this roster that feel like they're already halfway out the door. Not because they aren't talented, but because football is ruthless, and timing, health, and contracts matter just as much as production. Let's start with the one that hits hardest for most fans, because it has the biggest ripple effect on this: offense. Brandon Ayuk is the toughest one to talk about, and honestly, it feels like the writing is on the wall. He's coming off a brutal knee injury with a torn ACL and MCL, and that alone complicates everything. Recovery timelines are unpredictable, and teams get nervous when they're asked to commit big money to a player who might not be fully himself for a long stretch. On top of that, the contract situation has gone sideways. Reports indicate communication broke down to the point where guarantees were voided, and once trust starts eroding like that, it's very hard to rebuild. If Ayuk is gone, this isn't just losing a receiver, it's losing a core piece of the offense who stretches the field, wins one-on-one, and commands defensive attention. Let me know in the comments right now, would you rather keep Ayuk if he can get healthy, or move on and reallocate that money elsewhere? Just type keep or move on. Then there's Spencer Burford, and his situation is quieter but just as telling. Burford entered the season with an opportunity to solidify himself, but instead his play regressed. The coaching staff gradually lost confidence, and he ended up more of a depth option than a building block. When you look at his performance metrics and how often he was targeted or replaced, it's hard to argue that he earned a long-term spot. Offensive line depth matters, but the 49ers are at a point where they need reliability, not just bodies. Burford feels like a player another team might take a chance on, while San Francisco looks to reset that interior spot with either a rookie or a cheaper, more consistent veteran. Brian Robinson Jr. is a different kind of decision. He's not someone fans are eager to push out, but his role here might be too small for what he can offer. He's shown he can handle more touches and contribute as a runner, but in this offense, he's been stuck behind other options. Running backs don't have long windows, and it wouldn't be surprising at all if he looks for a situation where he can be more than a backup. From the 49ers' perspective, letting him walk opens the door for a younger, cheaper back to step into that role, especially one who can contribute on special teams. Would you rather keep Robinson for depth, or are you comfortable rolling with younger legs? Yes or no in the comments. Yetur Gross-Matos is next, and this one comes down to availability and consistency. When he's on the field, he flashes, but the problem is how often he hasn't been available. Missing games, limited impact stretches, and an edge room that needs dependable rotational pressure all work against him. The 49ers have historically liked to rotate their pass rushers, but that only works when those players are actually there and producing. This feels like a spot where the team might decide a rookie or a cheaper option gives them more upside and flexibility. And finally, there's Jason Pinnock, a move that just never really clicked. He came in as a low-risk addition, but his performance never separated him from the pack. When you look at how quickly he fell down the depth chart and the grades he posted, it's hard to justify bringing him back when the team clearly wants more from that safety spot. This is one of those quiet off-season departures that doesn't make headlines, but still tells you something about how the coaching staff views its secondary. So let me ask you this, and I want one name in the comments. Which of these potential departures hurts the most? Aiyuk, Burford, Robinson, Gross-Matos, or Pinnock? If you're enjoying this kind of honest roster talk, make sure you subscribe and help us get closer to 1,000 subscribers, because this offseason is going to be full of big decisions, and I'll be breaking all of them down right here. Now that you know who might be gone, the next question is obvious. How do the 49ers replace them, and what does the offseason plan actually look like from here? That's exactly what we're getting into next. Once you accept that some of these players may not be back, the conversation naturally shifts to the bigger picture. This isn't just about who's leaving, it's about how the 49ers respond. The front office now has to balance urgency with discipline, because overreacting to a playoff blowout can be just as damaging as doing nothing. The goal isn't to panic, it's to recalibrate. If Brandon Aiyuk is gone, the priority becomes very clear very fast. You're suddenly looking at a wide receiver room that lacks a true, proven outside threat who can consistently win on his own. That doesn't mean the offense collapses, but it does mean defenses can play differently. In that scenario, the 49ers likely have to address wide receiver early in the draft or be aggressive in free agency, even if it's not for a superstar. Depth becomes just as important as star power because you need multiple options who can separate and stay healthy. If Aiyuk stays, the focus shifts elsewhere, and that's where the offensive line comes back into the spotlight. The interior line, in particular, has been a question mark, and Spencer Burford's potential exit only highlights that. This is a spot where the team could quietly invest early in the draft, even if it doesn't excite fans right away. Games like the Seattle loss remind you that when protection breaks down, everything else follows. Let me know in the comments, what's the bigger priority for you right now? Wide receiver or offensive? Line? Just pick one. Defensively, edge depth is impossible to ignore. If Yetur Gross-Matos walks, the rotation gets thinner, and relying solely on stars without a steady supporting cast is risky. The 49ers have historically done well finding value edge rushers in the middle rounds, and this feels like another year where that approach makes sense. You don't need a headline signing here. You need someone who can give you consistent snaps, set the edge, and occasionally get home on third down. Running back is an interesting spot if Brian Robinson Jr. leaves. The beauty of this offense is that it can elevate runners, which gives the team flexibility. Instead of paying for experience, the 49ers could look to the draft or undrafted free agents to find someone younger who can contribute on special teams and grow into a larger role. This is one of those positions where spending smart matters more than spending big. Would you rather see the team draft a running back or sign a low-cost veteran? Type draft or vet below. Safety depth is another quiet but important area. Jason Pinnock's likely departure means the team has to evaluate whether they trust what they already have or want fresh competition. This is the type of move that might not make headlines but can show up in big moments if ignored. Late-round picks and low-cost free agents often decide these battles, and training camp becomes critical here. If you're enjoying this breakdown and want more off-season planning, videos like this, make sure you like the video and subscribe. We're building toward 1,000 subscribers, and your support is what makes deep dives like this possible. Share this with a friend who's already talking draft scenarios, because we're just getting started. Now that we've laid out the roadmap, the next step is knowing exactly who and what to watch as this offseason unfolds. There are battles and storylines that will shape this roster long before Week 1, and you don't want to miss them. This is the part of the offseason where things can quietly change fast, even before a single game is played. While most fans are locked in on big names and draft headlines, the real shape of the roster often starts forming in these smaller battles. If you know what to watch for, you can see the direction of this team months before the season kicks off. One of the biggest storylines to track is how the coaching staff handles young offensive linemen. With Spencer Burford likely gone, or at least longer trusted as a starter, there's a real opportunity for a younger player to step up. Whether that's a mid-round draft pick or someone already on the roster, pay close attention to who gets first-team reps early. Coaches don't hand those out by accident. If a young lineman is consistently working with the starters, that's your sign the team believes in him. Wide receiver depth is another area to watch closely, especially if Brandon Ayuk isn't part of the long-term plan. Training camp reps, preseason targets, and even who lines up in two receiver sets will tell you a lot. Sometimes the most important clue isn't a big play, it's consistency. Who does the quarterback trust on third down? Who's getting snaps when the playbook is fully open? That's how you spot a future contributor before the stat sheet catches up. Running back battles could get interesting too if Brian Robinson Jr. moves on. This offense gives runners a chance to shine, and that creates real competition. Watch special teams' usage here, because that's often the deciding factor for depth backs. If a young runner is returning kicks or playing on coverage units, he has a real shot to stick. I'm curious what you think. Do you enjoy these running back competitions? Or would you rather the team just lock in a clear number 2? Yes or no in the comments. On the defensive side, edge rotation and safety depth are going to be sneaky important. If Yetur Gross-Matos is gone, snaps open up immediately, and that's where a rookie or lesser-known veteran can make a name for himself. Watch for who plays early downs versus obvious passing situations. That tells you how much trust the coaches have in their discipline and awareness. At safety, competition will be fierce if Jason Pinnock exits. These spots often come down to mental mistakes more than physical ability, so preseason games and camp reports matter more than highlights. If you want a follow-up video that tracks these battles week by week, type tracker in the comments, and I'll put one together. And if you haven't already, now's a great time to subscribe and turn on notifications. We're closing in on 1,000 subscribers, and I want you here for every step of this off-season journey. All of this brings us to the bigger question. After a loss like that, what should fans realistically expect? And how do you balance frustration with optimism? That's how we'll wrap this up. Right now, it's completely normal to feel frustrated, disappointed, and even a little uneasy about where this team is headed. A playoff loss like that sticks with you because it challenges the belief that everything was lined up perfectly. But here's the important part to remember. This roster isn't broken. It's being tested. And moments like this are often what force smart organizations to make the adjustments they were putting off. The 49ers still have a strong foundation, but the margin for error is smaller than it used to be. That means tougher decisions, younger, contributors, and a front office that has to be disciplined instead of emotional. Losing players like Brandon Ayuk or others we talked about would hurt, but it could also create opportunities for growth if those moves are handled the right way. The key is balance. Improving the roster without losing the identity that made this team competitive in the first place. As a fan, the best thing you can do right now is stay engaged and informed. Off seasons aren't won in one move. They're built through smart drafting, development, and finding value where other teams aren't looking. There will be moments that don't feel exciting at first, and then suddenly make a lot of sense when the season starts. That's why paying attention now actually matters. Before you go, I want to hear from you. What is the one thing you want this team to fix more than anything else going into next season? Just one word in the comments. And if you've enjoyed this breakdown and want consistent, honest 49ers coverage, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers so I can keep bringing you these deep dives all off-season long. Turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next, because there's a lot more to talk about.